Researchers at Good Governance Africa say the world has turned a blind eye towards Zimbabwe. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has been cracking down on opposition to his rule. He's accused the opposition of exploiting the country's economic challenges to topple his government. We're joined by Chris Maroleng. He's the Executive Director of Good Governance Africa. Good evening, Chris. It's such a pleasure to have you on. Why do you think that the world is turning a blind eye to the humanitarian crisis in our neighboring Zimbabwe?
Good evening, Cathy, and certainly we at Good Governance Africa recently released a paper which was authored by our Director of Research and Programs, Dr. Ross Harvey, who basically goes on record, as we do at GGA, saying that it does appear that the region in particular, when I say the region, I mean the Southern African Development Community, South Africa in particular, seems to be turning a blind eye on the crisis in Zimbabwe. This is because we believe that it is up to the region in times of great crisis like we see in Zimbabwe, where human rights violations are abused. We're seeing rampant arrests, abductions and torture of human rights activists. It is incumbent on the region, especially our government here in South Africa, to stand up and basically call on the government of Zimbabwe to cease and desist from such anti-democratic behavior.
Chris, of course, when it comes to maybe seeking a stronger response out of SADC, this is a continuation of how the region has been responding to Zimbabwe for decades now. Perhaps it's worsened by the fact that the situation in that country also continues to get worse with the years. Why do you think that there would be a change this time around?
Because really, Cathy, what we have learned from the past approaches with regards to foreign policy by neighboring states of Zimbabwe is that the impact of the crisis in Zimbabwe does not just affect Zimbabwe itself, but it's certainly affecting the region. It's affecting South Africa as we speak, as we see a number of Zimbabweans leaving that country and coming to South Africa and other countries in the region. And it's surprising that our leaders in SADC would effectively take a position which is shown to have failed in not condemning it when human rights violations occur, but more importantly, where we see the economy of that country really crumbling to ruins. I think, and we believe at Good Governance Africa, that it's important that the region takes a stand, that the leaders of the Southern African Development Community are seen to be intervening not just in the interest of showing solidarity to Emmerson Mnangagwa and his government, who are increasingly showing signs of autocracy, but really acting in the interest of the citizens of that country who face supreme oppression as we currently speak.
Let's maybe look a bit broader and look at the situation that's happening in Mozambique, that's facing its own internal problems with the development of ISIS groups that seem to be forming there. Again, we haven't had anything concrete coming out of SADC. What does that say about these regional bodies and the extent to which they are effective when there needs to be a decision taken? And how much pressure then is on a country like South Africa to begin to lead that process, especially for those who regard South Africa as the hegemon of the region?
Absolutely. You really bring up a very worrying and concerning outbreak or situation in Mozambique, where we see in northern Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado, an insurgent group who are carrying out atrocities in that country and really destabilizing Mozambique. Again, we call on the Southern African Development Community to really be seen to be taking action to curb such an insurgency. And certainly this talks to the broader question that we are discussing today, Cathy, which is about the seeming inaction of our regional body, the Southern African Development Community, when faced with these serious crises which relate to bad governance and really a failure of localized government to deal with these problems. I think that especially President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, where we are, Cathy, must be seen to be more active. it's particularly important now when South Africa is at the helm of the African Union, where President Cyril Ramaphosa is the chair of the African Union. So effectively what we're saying is that the Bill of Rights, which talk to freedom of association, freedom of speech, and really supports people's fundamental rights, must be something that the South African government calls upon their fellow member states to also adhere to. Our foreign policy, and especially during the Mandela administration, was described as being idealistic. I disagree. I think that idealism was very pragmatic because it understood that the failure of South Africa to really call on member states in SADC to respect the rule of law, to respect human rights, to look out for food security and human security of the people of the region is really a failure on our part as South Africa to export and really bring into play some of these very important principles that talk about the sanctity of the rights of citizens of the whole of the Southern African community.
Chris Maroleng, let's leave it there for tonight. He is the Executive Director of Good Governance Africa. Thanks for your time.